Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ground Zero. Today we're with Christophe. He's owned agencies in the past, and today we're going to be discussing his first times going through the agency, all the lessons he's learnt running it, and anything else he wants to add on. So, do you want to start by introducing yourself and telling us a bit about that, Christophe?
Yeah, sure. Hello, Christoph, and amazingly pronounced, Sturton. And yes, I'm quite long in the tooth, as anybody who's watching rather than just listening will know. But I started work around about the mid 80s. I worked in the creative sector, I suppose, ever since then, in various agencies, event production, communications consultancy, film production, video production, a bit of publishing, and now I trained as a small business coach, and so I'm kind of on the advice side. Well, not really advice because coaches don't give advice, but I asked a lot of questions for a living now. Working mainly with creative micro businesses or project driven businesses. So those, kind of, and you'll hear me say this a lot. The owner doer, the person who is kind of not only the business owner, but also the person who does the business as well. And the creative industries are stuffed full of them, I think. So that's me in a nutshell. I live in North Dorset. That's where I'm talking to from now. Spend a lot of time in Poole, as you know, with your buddies at the You Are the Media, Mark Masters, etc. And I also work up in Bristol and in Bath as well. And I try and give London a wide berth. I left it 15 years ago, I guess, and I don't really like going back too much, except for pleasure. That's all.
Yeah. So, how was your first time starting an agency? Because obviously you had to start from scratch, I believe. So, do you want to run through the starting process and?
Yeah, no, interesting for me, really. I was working for, at the time, it was, I think, Europe's largest event production agency. And yeah, I mean, because it was bigger than most, it had its own problems. But for me and some of my colleagues, we were doing things. It was quite groundbreaking because mid 80s events and stuff were all there was no video projection. Well, that was very early days for videos. It wasn't. You did things with slides and it was business theatre, really. It was good fun, but we were doing things, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. And the problem that or the frustration that I had is I was ringing up graphic artists and saying, can you do this for me and do it tonight so that I get, and I know they have to work all night to get things done. And then our accounts department, because we're a bigger agency, wouldn't pay them for, I don't know, 2 months. And that became more and more frustrating as time went on. And then a bit of luck happened because myself and actually a freelance colleague at the time, we flew out to Grenoble to go and see a large computer company and the sales director there. And we'd done quite a lot of work for this guy before and for the business, for the company in various different places in Europe. And he said, look, chaps, I just want to tell you something. And we went, yes, indeed, Mr. Client. He said, look, I love working with you, but I really don't like working with the agency that you work for. And we went, right. He said, so if you ever consider leaving and starting on your own, we'll come with you. And this is a major multinational computer business, so we're quite excited by that. And he said, I tell you what, I'm going to ring your bosses and I'm going to tell them what I've just told you. So we sat there and went, okay. And he picked up the phone and he rang our boss or our sort of account leader and said, look, I'm sitting in front of these two chaps and I like them very much, but I don't like you. So I'm encouraging them to leave and set up their own agency. And there was kind of nervous laughter on the other end of the phone. And then he said, fine, and put the phone down and said, well, it's up to you guys now. So we did. So we left and we set up, we had a garden table in a serviced office in Chiswick. That was it. And we were up and running really from the first week that we were there because we had a client. He said he'd follow us. And yeah, and then shortly after that, one of the other clients that I work with very closely rang up and said, "You've left, but I want to come with you." So it kind of snowballed, and I think probably 6 months later, 9 months later, we were running a conference, I think, for 1,500 people in the Fremantle jail in Australia. So it all went really quickly, and we had no time to think about it. It was just like do project after project after project after project, because that was exciting. That's why we were getting paid directly by the client for it and stuff. So that's how the first sort of company I started began, really, but just purely through a client saying, I think you should start your own thing.
So just to clarify, what was the agency for? Was it digital marketing, or was it?
No, digital marketing wasn't a thing then.
No.
It was we were event guys, really. We did big conferences, big sales conferences, product launches, management conferences, change management programs, that kind of stuff. So it was a lot of internal events for big multinationals like KPMG or American Express or Hewlett Packard or IBM or whoever. Yeah, they would hold an annual sales conference or a senior management conference or a conference for all of their directors to announce a new set of values, that kind of thing. And it expanded from there into a little group. So we had a video production company, and which also produced a couple of feature films. By the by, but that was really more for fun than money, because there's no money in that. But it meant we could put on a linen suit, take the helicopter to Cannes, and feel like really, really important. But yeah, so that was the scope of it, really. We had a logistics business as well, which we didn't really get on with, because that was enrolling people in events and doing all that really nitty gritty badges, posters, stickers, t-shirt stuff that we didn't really enjoy. But yeah, its main focus was corporate comms, B2B communications, and a lot of live events and video and stuff.
So from the start of actually starting up the agency, what do you say the biggest lessons or takeaways was about the start process? Because obviously you've gone from working for someone to actually doing it all on your own.
Yeah. We were lucky because I suppose what people might class as success happened quickly. But in some ways, that's not a good thing. If you've always got people rocking up to your door, you don't develop a sense of hunger to get new stuff. Really, it can be a little bit, and the clients that love you want you all the time. So I think probably we set up for quite I think it was an interesting reason. We wanted to pay our freelancers on time because we recognized that they were the lifeblood of what we did. If we wanted to stay small but do big, we had to employ lots of freelancers. And the important thing was to be ahead of everyone else when it came to paying them, because then they'd come back and work for us rather than work for anybody else. That was a core thing. And we also said to ourselves, we don't really want to work the weekends. Inevitably you have to, particularly in events, because you set up over the weekend for a week-long event or whatever. But that was our kind of, we don't really want to burn the midnight oil. We want to be effective as well as efficient, and work smart, not work overly hard. And to a certain extent, that kind of worked. And more than anything else, we wanted to give our clients a better deal, better service, and all those kinds of things. So with that was good as a guide for us. But what we didn't do, which I think everybody should do when they're setting up a business, is, particularly a service business, is look ahead, I don't know, 2, 3, 5, 10 years time to what you're going to become, even if it's a pipe dream. And the reason for that is because if you're making, I don't know, swimming shorts, new range of swimming shorts or swimwear or something, you're likely to want to raise money for that. So you're going to go out and convince investors, and you have to spend a lot of time convincing investors that it's going to work, and then they buy into you, and they don't buy into you, whatever. But if you're setting up like we did an agency. We didn't need any hardware. We didn't have any upfront costs particularly, and or we could get by with virtually none. We just needed a computer, which we had, and off we went. We could just kind of go. But it meant that we didn't pitch ourselves to anybody who was going to give us money. And that's a really good discipline, because it forces you to go, well, what am I going to make of this business, and why would anybody want to invest in us? And it's not just people giving you money. It's once you get into that discipline, and I go through this one with my coaching program, is once you get into that discipline, you can sell yourself to anybody. Sell yourself to a supplier. You can sell yourself to another stakeholder, investor, a client, a new recruit, because you know what you're talking about and you can paint a picture of it. So I think I would have loved to have gone through that process of really selling the idea of what we wanted to do to somebody before we kicked off. Because once you're up and running, you're locked in. You know, you're busy all the time. You've got clients ringing you up all the time. And when they're not, and you've done loads of work and you're exhausted, then you take time off and go down the pub, play a game of chess or whatever. So I definitely would have thought about not the end. It's one of the questions that you get given when you're training as a business coach is ask this question, which is, what's your exit plan? And I don't like the question, but it does pitch you forward a bit. You know, if you look forward. So when you start, look about where you think it might end, or where you dream it might end up, or what it might give you. And that's really good, because it means that you're setting yourself on a path rather than setting up a business, doing some project work, getting some revenue, all very good. So long as the revenue is coming in, your business is there. When the revenue stops, your business is not. So that's, I think, what I would advise anybody to do, is to go and see a critical friend, pitch to them, and say, does this sound like a good idea? We're going out on our own and this is how we're going to do it. And if they go, yeah, then it works. You can say it to other people.
So obviously, I gather, since you said you're a coach now, that obviously you don't hold the agency anymore. So what was the sort
of the agency anymore? No, I've had 2 or 3 businesses. But count them, but in between. And some successful, some not so successful. Some were about timing, some were about just not being a very good idea. So it's that first one we ran for, I suppose, 12, 13 years, something like that. And that will then change.
So what was sort of the path from the start of the agency to like the middle and the ending of it? Did you stick with the original clients, or did you start pitching outwards? And did you like stay nationally in the UK, or did you like branch out into other places of the world?
No, we stuck in the UK, but we were working internationally. So on every continent, barring Antarctica. It ebbed and flowed. And we weren't, because we hadn't really envisaged our path and what the end game was going to be. We were a little bit swaying in the wind of what was happening. I mean, we went through 3 recessions as that particular agency, and that kind of, you have to sort of reset every time. But the beginning was a mad rush, and loads of people loved us, and that was fantastic, and we were rocking, and we loved it, and we traveled a lot to glamorous places and stayed in glamorous hotels and all this kind of stuff. Very hard work, it was non-stop, but we didn't really have to work very hard for work. And when the work got, and we employed, I think at our fighting weight, we were 20, 25 people. And then, because of 90s and 1990s, I have to say, last century, I'm told, that the business tailed off because of recession, and then we restructured a little bit and got rid of it. It was a constantly sort of moving it was like a concertina. You know, we expanded and we contracted, we expanded and contracted, because I think really, if I'm honest about it, we hadn't set the goal, we hadn't set the an idea of what we were going to be. So if we had, we might have said, okay, we want to start in New York, or we wanted to start in Dubai, or we wanted to. But as it was, we went with the flow that came to us, and I think that's the other thing that I would say to people who are starting in that kind of way is learn to market yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, you won't expand your. It'll be luck, I suppose, if you get new business, because that's people finding you somehow, but not necessarily in the right way. And it doesn't matter how busy you are or how many jobs you're doing. Go out and tell people about yourself, because one day they're going to stop talking to you, and at that stage you're going to need to go out and talk to them.
So towards the end, what was like, if you don't mind saying, what was like the sort of end to the agency? Would you say it was it?
Well, people came to us and said, we want to buy you, and we hummed and hawed and said, no, we don't want to do that, we think we can do better. And then lots of personal stuff happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that really, and we didn't feel like we had any particular substance at that stage to kind of to sell. We were three partners. Two of us wanted to go and do one thing or new thing, and one of the partners wanted to spend time with family because of illness and stuff. And so we diverged, and two of us went off and started something new, which we wanted to do. We had some capital, I suppose, from or some payback from some of the work that other people had taken over from us. But in essence, we didn't have some grand big sale. Sold some stuff, but we didn't have a big sale of the business. So it didn't come to a clean end, because two of us sort of carried on to do something else. So there was a little bit of a what would you call it? I suppose there was a slight interruption to the work we traditionally did. We carried some of that through, and then started anew with something else. So it was we thought it was a bit of a continuum, but it wasn't. It was really the end of one and beginning of another.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah, it's not a grand ending, and that's
mm-hmm.
partly the reason why I do what I do, just to help people to have a good finish.
So out of obviously a whole experience of running an agency, what would be this would be two questions in one. What would be your main lessons that people can take away from starting and obviously going towards the end or continuing on an agency into the long future? And is there any books you'd recommend or podcasts to listen to outside of this episode that people can read or watch to learn a bit more about agencies?
Yeah, there's something called Agencynomics, which is all about agencies. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, I have to say. I listen to audiobooks and
Mm-hmm.
and I put them all together to try and distill something from them. I mean, Seth Godin is good. Any of his books is a tip top as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So start there, and that's a kind of a podcast if you listen to the books. Advice is probably closer to most people than they think, because a lot of people who start agencies are already working for one.
Mm.
So learn what you can when you're employed by somebody else. But there seems to be, certainly in the creative industries, there seems to be a huge desire to go independent, to do your own thing. Big light bulb, I suppose, is that when you leave an employer and start your own thing and do your own thing independently, there's a sort of sense of freedom there that you unshackled yourself from all the politics and what have you of the people that you used to work for. But that's a bit of a deception, because all you do is you inherit all of the stuff that they used to do that you didn't know that they did, all the admin, all the billing, all the cash flow, the accounts, the dealing with contracts and lawyers and all of those sorts of things, which if as you grow as an agency you'll have to have, which is why it's so important to have a vision of where you're going, because then that setup is going to be much more meaningful to you, because you know that it's important to keep control of your business.
Yeah, you sort of answered my next question. It's going to be, obviously people want to come out of that 9 to 5 into agency work, working for yourself. What would be the main thing that people think that they know that they actually don't know about working for yourself? Because I assume it's not all sunshine, rainbows. You go in, happy days, you work for yourself now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose there is, if you don't think of yourself as an employee of your own business, if you think yourself as a business owner all the time, then you're going to work your nuts off, basically. You really are, because you're always going to pick up the pieces. So if you think about yourself as an employee of your own business, then you have the same rights as all the employees that you have. Even if you've got nobody, at least you've got an employer. You've got some sort of redress, if you like. So you can put two hats on at the same time. So yeah, anticipate that you're going to be doing at least two, probably 5 or 6 jobs at the same time. Because you're going to be running the business, you're going to be selling the business, you're going to be marketing the business, you're going to be doing the business, you're going to be a relationship manager, you're going to be an agony aunt, an employer, you're going to have to deal with people and their concerns and their stresses and strains, and create an atmosphere in which is good for them to grow. So there's a whole, you're not going to just be an event producer anymore, or a graphic artist anymore, or a videographer, or whatever. You're going to be having loads of different hats, and it's fine. If you identify those hats, that's one book that's really worth reading, because it's not agency specific. There's Michael Gerber wrote a book called The E-Myth, and it's now called E-Myth Revisited. But it goes through what happens when you start to grow. And you employ an extra person, and you expect them to work as hard as you do because you're the owner. Of course, they don't, because they don't own the business. And suddenly things start to go wrong. And it's a very good book. It's not about e-commerce or anything. It's about entrepreneurs. The E stands for entrepreneurs in E-Myth. So I think that you've got to slightly anticipate that you're going to have to tackle some stuff that you've never encountered before. If you've never encountered writing an employment contract, or you've never done the terms and conditions for your business to put in front of a client, and they sound like you can just pick them off the shelf and put them through. But if you do that, there's all sorts of stuff that doesn't work for you in the way that you want it to. So you start to change it and tweak it and all of those sorts of things. So there's a lot of that stuff which is really important for your business to have substance. If you don't have that stuff, it won't have any substance, and it'll be very vulnerable as well. When we were very young, if you were on let's say you're on a £500,000 project, a good 60% of that was going to be third-party costs. So if you get to the event itself and the client didn't like it, which is infinitely, they could say they didn't like it because it's a very subjective thing, then you're carrying an enormous amount of cost, and that's got to be paid. And if you're having an argument with your client about it, so those sorts of things also get scary. So be prepared to take some risks. You are going to take some risks. You're not going to iron out all of those things. Pay attention to how you can minimize them. Then you can get sleep at night.
Mm. So obviously throughout the whole process, there's been highs and lows. What's been either the highest high or multiple highs, and what's been sort of like the low points that where you've been like, oh, we're in trouble?
Yeah, what have been the highs? The highs, I think the highs come from it's yeah, sure. If you're making money and you reach your break-even point halfway through the year, so the rest, the rest of the year is all profit or whatever. Those are, that's good, that's comfortable. But really, the joy was when you created something, you've been creative, and the people that you had been created for come back and go, my God, that was fantastic. That what you created was extraordinary and brilliant and all that sort of stuff. And maybe your first thought is, phew, we're going to get paid. But your next thought is, this is why I am who I am. This is why we do what we do, because we've made an impact on the people that we set out to make an impact, some sort of impact on. So that's the high, really, is when you get that feedback from the people who trusted you to do what you said you were going to do, and it's positive, and it's more than positive, and they're excited by what you do. Those are the highs, and we had lots of those kind of instances. Fortunately, we did. But on the other side, I do remember very tense. We had equipment failure. There was lots and lots of equipment, but we had backups for everything when we were doing a big event. And the chief executive worldwide, I think we were in, where were we? We were either in Berlin or in Cape Town or somewhere like that. And the chief exec had his notes on a screen in front of him, like a prompt screen. And it went down, and I didn't know because I wasn't on the stage, so I couldn't see. And he was struggling to signal anything to us, and eventually I cottoned on to him. Anyway, we had a good relationship, but he went. No, it was Cannes. That's where we were. He went bananas. He went absolutely ape. I thought he would never talk to us ever again. And that was a real low, because what he said was, why can't you do your job properly? And at first I thought that was kind of unfair. And then I thought, well, no, we can learn from this. We can have a look to see how that can never happen again. But it really upset me because, we had a lot of pride in what we did. Be told I wasn't doing my job properly was really hurt. So that kind of, I think when anybody defaults on an invoice, that's a low, because, it's going to be an argument, and, quite big sums. That's a big low. And the other big low, I'd say, is when people up sticks and they leave you because you haven't looked after them as an employer. That's a real low. Sometimes you don't realize you're doing it. So yes, if you have people who are working with you and for you or for your business, look after them really well, because they up sticks and take clients away from you, like I did from the agency who didn't look after me very well. And that's very, very important. Yeah, that soft stuff is really important.
So is there any final lessons that you want to give out at all? Anything that you haven't mentioned in this episode so far?
Heavens above. Is there anything? Well, yeah, I suppose one of the things that I've done since having agencies, if you like, is I got involved in something called the Blueprint for Better Business, which came out of the financial crisis in 2008, when everyone hated bankers and bankers were hated, and they said, oh, we need to do something about this. And so a group of people came up with this blueprint for better business. So businesses that respected the human nature, the nature of humans, and put purpose, before profit. And I know purpose is a really kind of overused word, but back in 2008, no one was talking about it. And I think it's good to have that awareness of what you're about. It's a really difficult thing to come up with on your own, funny enough. And it's also quite difficult for friends to tell you. You need someone who's a bit disassociated with you to to listen to you, find out, discover, and become aware of what you're all about. Because that will then end up being your guide for how you behave, what you go for, what you don't go for, what you like to do, what you tell people around you expect from them if you're working with them. And frankly, it attracts people to you who are the same sort of mindset as you. And having that awareness means you can share it and communicate it. And I think that is something that I would advise everybody to do, is to really think hard about what it is. I mean, yeah, a lot of people say, "Oh, know your why." And I'm going, well, yes, do know your why. That start with your why, and that, which is another very good book, by the way. Start with your why. Now I've forgotten the author's name. Everyone who's heard of it will know it. Look it up. Start with your why. Yeah, I think that is really important throughout your career. And don't forget to look after yourself, because it's very easy to work too hard and then burn out.
Well, last thing, if there's something else to add, Christophe, where can everyone find you if they have any questions outside of this episode?
Oh, that's very kind of you. Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me at deadlineology.com. That's deadline, but without an E, and ology. That's my ology. And there's contact numbers certainly on LinkedIn. So have a look there. I'm part of the You Are the Media group, Bristol Creative Industries. I'm listed up there, so I'm in lots of different places. Surname Stourton, Stourton. That's where you can find me.
All right, perfect. Well, it's a pleasure having you on, Christophe.
It's lovely to be here, Ben. And I'm congratulations, by the way, on your achievement this week. Was it this week or last week?
No, this week. Yeah.
Yeah. Well done. I think that's fantastic. Keep
you.
up the good work, and keep feeding us these podcasts. It's good fun to be on, and it's as much learning for us talking about things as it is for you, I hope.
Oh, thank you. But no, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Christophe. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Yeah,
And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye for now.
Cheers now.